Good morning, all. Today is going paperless with iPad. Now, for those of you that were at our tech conference last week, this may be a little repetitive for some, but I think a good repetitive. There's also a couple points that we didn't have a chance to cover last week as well. So let me just dive right into it. And if you want to just let me know, I see a few of you are logging in already. Could you just send me a quick text message? Who's first up? Peter. You can hear me and you can see my screen, and we're good to go. And I'm waiting, Peter. That we're there on Thursday. This might be a little repetitive, but again, repetitive in a good way. So obviously, touch screens and iPads are a necessity these days. And we're going to talk about just a couple of the applications that we can use here. And if I get my mouse to work correctly, there we go. It's a little slow. It's ironic that we're talking about technology, and unfortunately, I still have to do this on my PC. But let's first talk about what best practices are. Now, you know, some people get into a little bit of overwhelm when we start talking technology, and it's not to make our life more complicated, but in fact, it will do the opposite. The user interface now is so much easier with touch screens and everything else. So we're looking at how do we use technology to do a couple of things. Number one, simplify our processes. Number two, wow our clients, because, you know, let's face it, most agents aren't as tech savvy as we are, or at least as we're going to be. So we want to make sure that we position ourselves ahead of the competition. And lastly, how do we also create efficiencies so that if we're doing some repetitive tasks, how do we make our workload more efficient? How do we minimize the work and accomplish all of these at once? And again, here's the new tech standards. You do need to have a smartphone. I don't care which one. I mean, I chose the Samsung, but you can have the iPhone. The apps are all out there for all the same all the same use. You need an iPad or Android tablet, and of course, you need to, as things go on and develop and change and update whatever necessary apps that we're using. We're going to talk about a couple of them today. You need to make sure that you figure out how to get internet access wherever you are. So, for example, I've got an iPad with internet access. It's got a built-in card. I've also got, as a backup, my Samsung phone. I can get a hotspot on it in case it's down. So I've got a little bit of redundancy. And for those of you that are doing offers, and that's all of us, we highly recommend having a wireless printer in your car, and it'll accomplish a couple things, guys. I mean, it'll save you a lot of time and energy. And, you know, think about traditionally, you're out there with your client, they see the property they like, they're ready to go. Now, you've either got to go back to the office to prepare the offer and drag everybody with you, or you could have the offer ready to go on your laptop, on your iPad, get it all ready, and go and print up hard copy. Now, why do I say printer when we're talking about going paperless? Because the reality is, you know, although we're going paperless, a lot of agents and a lot of their clients still don't understand paperless just yet. So we still have to, in many cases, physically present a signed offer. And this is why we need a printer. And, you know, we're not talking thousands of dollars. I think you can get an HP printer for like $199. And just make sure that you have a cigarette lighter adapter so that you can plug in your printer in your car, so you're not scrambling looking for a coffee shop and dragging your equipment and everything else. You really want to make it as seamless as possible. And you know, we're not going to talk about websites and social media presence, but the new tech standards require that you have a presence online, that you have it on, you know, you have a presence online with your own branded website, and you have a presence on social media. Again, not in, you know, we're not going to talk about those, but we're not talking about marketing today. We're just talking about tech, okay? And, you know, let's dive into the iPad. And I like this visual because for me personally, I prefer typing on a keyboard, rather than on the keypad on the iPad. I mean, in a pinch, that's what we'll use. But you can get these hard case keyboards that make our job so much easier, especially when you're modifying clauses and so on. And they're typically Bluetooth keyboards with a protective case. They're not expensive, at $50 to $100 depending on what you get. And, you know, again, just another thing that we need in our arsenal. Now, we're going to first talk about Evernote. And Evernote is an app you can get. I think it's still, you know, $10 to get the app. The full-blown version, there's trial versions, but I just, you know, spend your $10, get the application. And Evernote is really a a simple file storage software. So in essence, what we can do is we can create filing cabinets, in the same way that you have file folders in Word or in Publisher on your PC in the old days. Well, now you have folders that can hold all kinds of different documents. So as you can see here, I've got folders for prospects, I've got folders for buyers, for sellers, I've got whatever's closed, whatever DocuSign, and whatever templates I have as well. So for example, here's a template that I created for a client consultation. So it's just some basic information. And again, the time is not the time to go through this is not when you're in the car, not when you're multitasking. You have to have a nice quiet place when you're talking to your client on your Bluetooth or wired headset, and at the same time you can take notes so you can get all of this place. And what will happen is as you rather than putting it on a piece of paper and then transferring it to a document and then trying to email it or print it or save it, it all lives in Evernote. And the beautiful thing about Evernote is that it's in the cloud. In other words, you can access this information from your smartphone, you can access it from your iPad, and you can access it from literally any computer, online, anywhere in the world. So your document information, which will include not just name, address, contact information, all of that, but also photos and everything else that we're going to kind of get into. So here's an example. Here's one client contact file that I have. I've got name, address, contact info, and I've highlighted past client. And as we get started, I can highlight and add more information. And this is actually an old file which I've since updated, but just to kind of give you an idea of how you use the template. I can also record an audio note. So rather than, I don't like typing a million notes, but I can actually put an audio note. I can't play it for you now, but you can imagine all the notes that I had. Like I may have a 5-10 minute conversation. We talked about 17 different things. I'm going to record a quick audio note, and it embeds it right in Evernote. It's really pretty cool and pretty easy to use. You can also use this little microphone down here to record as well. And when you use this little microphone on your iPad keypad, it'll actually type all of that information right in there. It's not perfect, but it's like 99% of the time if you wanted to put notes. All you have to do is speak slowly, and it transfers voice to text. It's very, very, first time you use it, it's very, very cool. After a while, you don't know how you did without it. Again, same functionality is available on most smartphones, of course on the iPad. And as I said, you can also embed photos right into the notes. So for example, if you're with a buyer, for example, you're walking through the perfect house or the perfect condo, take photos with your iPad. It embeds it right into Evernote. Take photos with your iPhone, embeds it right into Evernote. You're doing a walkthrough with a seller prospect. You can take notes of things that need upgrades. You can take notes of really cool features. You can take notes of staging questions. This way, when you're looking at this 2 weeks later and you can't even remember the client's name, let alone their address or details, you look, it's all there. It all comes back to mind. And as you're doing all of this and the client's watching you do all of this, rest assured, no other agent has done this, at least at present time. But wait a few months, wait a couple years, and everybody's going to be doing this. So we just need to be ahead of the curve in this regard, right? You can also share all of this information with, quick little button here. You can share it by email. You can upload to Google Drive. There's a lot of different options that you can do here, and it just makes things that much easier. So for example, if you've got all of these notes and all of these photos, you can share it with the buyer. You can share it with the seller. You can share it with their, let's say you're out with the husband and the wife is not there that day. You can share it with both parties, so everybody's up to speed, and it's all stored. It's all there in your folder. Here's another quick application we'll talk about, and that is Numbers. Now, this is a simple app that kind of, the best description or analogy I can say is it's similar to Excel. It's actually very, very easy to use, and it lives inside the iPad. So here's an example. Here's a seller net sheet. And again, what you do is you develop simple templates that when you're sitting down with your client, you just simply fill in the numbers, and it automatically calculates net proceeds for you. So let's say I'm talking to Alice on the phone. Her sale price is $800. Her current mortgage balance is $240, or so she thinks. I give her an estimate on legal fees. I give her an estimate on commissions, moving expenses, renovation. 2 days later, she calls me back and tells me, well, actually, I didn't realize there's a penalty. I actually owe $250. I can amend that number, and it'll automatically calculate the net proceeds. And again, you can save this seller net sheet inside Evernote. You can keep it in numbers, of course, but you can put it in your seller folder in Evernote so that all of the discussions are all living in the one place. Here's another example of a template. This is a buyer summary. And by the way, Brian tells us that we can share all of these templates. Once we know you have numbers, you go into Brian and he'll help you figure out how to get these templates in your iPad. And again, you're sitting down with a buyer. We're going to review, and you've all participated in the buyer interview process where we talk about numbers and helping the buyer understand what are the upfront costs, what are the costs after ownership, and we can just fill in all of the blanks here for them. It'll show them what their total monthly is. It'll calculate their total investment. And we also want to understand how we can use real-time updates. Now, this is something I've been doing for a long, long time, and one we've talked about in past webinars, but I want to review again because it's really critical. Of course, we can do all of this inside Evernote. Number one, for example, let's say we're talking to a buyer. We're talking about a buyer, and this is a buyer in process. So they've actually submitted their offer. It's conditional, let's say, on financing, inspection, condo status, whatever. And what happens is, step by step, as we go all through these steps, first of all, you got to remember, most clients don't know what we're doing behind the scenes. So in their mind, if there's no communication, it could mean that we're not doing anything. So we want to bring them behind the scenes and make the invisible visible, as it were. So as the paperwork is completed, we simply type into the file the date completed, and we update them. We send them a copy. And there's a way that you can actually set this up so that they get real-time updates, something like a push notification that a document that they're reviewing has been changed or updated. They can see this in real time. So as we make changes, paperwork is completed on Monday. Document sent to the lawyer on Monday. Document sent to mortgage broker on Tuesday. Home inspection is booked on Tuesday. Home inspection completed on Wednesday, and so on and so on and so on. Of course, we don't show you the whole thing, but you know every single step that happens from the time you write the offer till the time the deal closes. There's all that stuff, right? From a seller standpoint, again, we list their house, we put the sign on the lawn, and then we don't do anything for a month as far as they're concerned in the absence of, communication. So we have a template for update where, hey, draft MLS listing is updated. You put the date, seller approves the draft, photographer, stager, all of that stuff. As it happens, you update them in real time. So we also do with seller lead updates. So for example, we've got leads coming in. John Smith comes in. He's a signed call. We've emailed him a package. Jim and Shirley are pay-per-click lead. We booked the appointment. It goes on and on and on, and that's exactly what we do. So as we enter every single one, I literally push a notification at every single point. So if I got 4 leads in one day, I will literally have 4 push notifications going to the sellers. And remember to make sure that if you have husband and wife, that both of them are getting real-time updates, both of them have access, or both of them are getting email updates with all of this stuff. And you want them to see everything that you're up to. When we talk about the client interview process, that's the obvious one that we all know. So we're doing our interview on the iPad. We're pushing out the Smart Seller's Guide by hard copy. So remember, we're going paperless, but there's something to be said for something tangible in the process as well. So we talk about the Smart Buyer's Guide or the Smart Seller's Guide. That's something that we courier. But then again, when we're doing the client presentation, buyer or seller interview, it's on the iPad. We're walking them through it, and we're sitting beside them, letting them get engaged with the iPad, literally to the point where, as you're doing your interview, you slowly push your iPad. You're sitting beside your client, remember, and you slowly push your iPad towards them, and they'll get to the point where they'll actually, touch through the slides, and they'll take control, as it were, right? What else can we do? Well, we talked about our annual review. Well, instead of the clipboard here, we show up with the iPad, we show them the information, we walk them through it, we send them a digital copy, and again, we're looking that much more efficient. And during the process when you're showing properties, have your property appointment schedule, which can also live in Evernote as a soft copy with all of the listings in there, with all of the comps when you're doing offers. So you really got to think about what are all of the different opportunities where we can use our iPad in place of paper. And again, send people copies of everything. People are okay with digital copies of everything these days. We're saving paper, we're saving the planet, and we're also presenting a more tech face to the world. Okay, so hopefully that was just enough and not too much. We want to get everybody started along this road. We haven't even talked about DocuSign. I think we'll talk specifically about that on a separate webinar, because it requires some legal clarifications about what makes a valid agreement, what doesn't, what does RICO allow and doesn't allow, and so on and so forth. So that's it for today's training. For more information about anything we talk about, give us a call, fire us an email, and go out there, sell something, but this time using your iPad. Make it a great day, guys. See you soon.